gap in the lead right now is large enough that Danny is definitely in control of his own destiny.
Yeah, the one thing you can say about Danny, especially for this season, he's actually lost playing for top 8 many, many times in the Open Series events, but he's always put up top 16, top 32 finishes.
Yeah, he's had deep day 2 finishes at basically all the Opens we've covered.
Windswept Heath's going to search up a basic forest as round number 3 is underway here from Charlotte. VanMeter going to play an Elvish Mystic, pass the turn back over to Hatch. Hatch will take a draw step. We'll see if he does have a hexproof creature to play on the first turn. He's just got a Dryad Arbor instead, so a slow start here from Matthew.
And turn 1 mana acceleration from Chris opens up some very explosive draws.
VanMeter just returning back from his trip to London, where he played in the Grand Prix along with the rest of the Versus Series crew. Shout out to everybody who attended Grand Prix London. I know the guys who did go had a fantastic time there. As here is Elvish Visionary off of a forest and a Pendlehaven. And now here comes the Mystic. I don't have a great look at it. If I get a better look, I'll let you know. There is a Hyena Umbra. And unfortunately for Chris, he may appear to have a sideboard card in his hand right now. So we're going to radio on down to the table. Playing a forest. That's coming out. He's also got an Evolutionary Leap. But yeah, it looks like he has a copy of Burrington Forge Tender in his hand, and we have the deck list in front of us, and it looks like Forge Tender is in his sideboard, not his main deck. So we are going to have to put a pause on it, because it looks like he has a sideboard card in his main deck here for game number 1.
Yeah, we'll get more information here in a moment here. I believe the judge is talking to Chris.
Yeah, we know how that results in this situation.
Yes.
Which is typically a game loss. We will, of course, get confirmation on this, but it appears as though there's a Forge Tender in the grip, and taking a look at the deck list, we see one Forge Tender in the sideboard.
Pretty common.
Be able to, yeah, of course, in these kind of decks to be able to maybe Evolutionary Leap into, we've seen it with Court of Calling, things like that, but that should not be in his main deck. So fortunately, we have the benefit of being able to correct game states like this. So again, yeah, when we have the opportunity to be able to, get a ruling and all that stuff, we'll let you guys know. So we will find out exactly what does happen. But as we analyze this matchup, you can really kind of see how the games are going to go. It's pretty straightforward stuff, right? And there's nothing really techy really going on with the green-white hexproof deck. It's play a creature, put a bunch of stuff on the creature, try to kill you. Is this plan good enough? Now, against some decks it is, against some decks it's not. And then, the ways that things get a little bit interesting is like when you're playing against a Lily on the Veil deck, where you have to have another creature, or you have a fetch land up to be able to search up a Dryad Arbor, something like that. So we'll see. What card is it? All right, the card in hand was a copy of Cloudstone Curio. So no harm, no foul. Chris has got his deck set up correctly. Just want to make sure that was the case.
The old artifact frames look quite a bit like white cards. Yeah. And the art also from a distance looks pretty close too.
Matthew going to take a look at Cloudstone Curio. This is where things get a little bit nutty with this deck, because you're able to play an elf, bounce an elf, and this is a way for you to go basically infinite.
Yes. You get those Nettle, Sentinel, Heritage, Druid type of setups that we're familiar with in legacy versions of the deck.
So Hatch knows what he's up against now. And Chris clearly knows he's up against, because only one deck does this.
Yep.
That's green-white hexproof. Now here's a Keen Sense as well. Keen Sense is the time-shifted curiosity. And he's going to take that Slippery Boggle. He's going to turn that sideways, as he should. It's very large.
Part of the problem that Matthew has in this matchup is all the information on Chris's side of the table is face up. The hexproof deck plays a lot at sorcery speed. It's a lot of enchantments, not a lot of pump spells inside of combat. So Chris knows the spots where he has to block, and he can just take his lumps. If he wants to chump block now for whatever reason, he has the option of doing that. But Matthew can't really trick him very easily.
Looks like Chris is just going to take this hit, has no interest in blocking, and also he can use his life total as a resource here too.
He can take his hits and set up shop. Again, you know, Matthew gets him low. Matthew gains some life on his end. None of that really matters as long as Chris is able to do his thing.
Temple Garden will enter the battlefield untapped. Hatch will take 2. There's another Slippery Boggle, pass the turn back. But it's very straightforward what Green-White Hexproof does. And really, it's the kind of deck that says, can you beat what I'm doing?
Yep. And Green-White Hexproof is very good against both removal spells and blockers. Not a lot of decks in Legacy are like that. The problem that Hexproof has is it's a little bit on the slower side, and it doesn't have much interaction for people who are doing unfair things, which is what Chris is doing.
Elvish Visionary, a couple copies of Evolutionary Leap in VanMeter's hand. Going to use that Arbor Elf to play a Visionary. Couple triggers, one from the Curio, one from the Visionary. Visionary will resolve first, so Chris will draw a card to get some info. Now we'll see if he wants to return anything with the Curio.
Curio is another piece of the puzzle alongside Evolutionary Leap that allows you to play a very effective attrition game against spot removal. When you have this card paired up with Elvish Visionary, you can grind through a lot of removal spells.
Regal Force in Chris's hand as well. I think we should just make Cradle legal for this deck. What do you think?
Little pushy.
Maybe. Maybe a touch too good.
Little pushy.
Here's Evolutionary Leap.
And I've been in this spot before on the other side of the table. If you don't have an effect that it grants trample to your creatures, this is just moat. I mean, there's no progress to be made on the ground anymore.
Matthew's got to find a Rancor. He's got to find Unflinching Courage. Spirit Mantle will work too. But if it's just attack.
Yeah, you're done from this spot.
Yeah.
I've been here before. It's an ugly place.
There's going to be a Spider Umbra. It's going to be Hyena Umbra first, so he's going to need white mana for that. Whichever Umbra he wants to cast. Okay, Spider Umbra's fine.
You just know all the Umbras.
I do. I used to play.
I know. I can tell.
Yeah. Here's a Daybreak Cornet.
No photos needed. You are just good.
I know. Cornet will give you +3/+3 first strike, vigilance, and lifelink. One thing that it doesn't grant?
Not trample.
Not trample. So for Chris, you get to use your life total as a resource. Everything's face up, as you did mention. There are no tricks to play around here.
Now, there's still an incentive for Chris to do a little preemptive chump blocking out of respect for a trample effect. He may not get the opportunity to chump block every single turn.
He's going to sacrifice the Visionary to Evolutionary Leap. Turn over some cards here until he finds a creature. He's got a Nettle Sentinel now. Those cards will go to the bottom.
Now, Chris can't do the offense-defense thing right now where he's attacking and then blocking and using Evolutionary Leap to chump block because of the enchantments on Matthew's side of the table. There's no attacks to be had. But Chris does have a lot of flexibility here to build up his board, chump block, and eventually build up something that can be lethal even over the top of blockers on the other side of the table.
You know, the only bad thing about Evolutionary Leap is it's bad in multiples. You draw multiple copies. It's just not very good. Then the first one's very good, so that's why I think you still have to play 4 copies of the card.
But if the first one is humming, you can afford some dead cards because it's generating a lot of card advantage as you go.
Looks like we might have an Essence Warden here. Chris might want to get attacking on, but it looks like he's going to start with using Arbor Elf. Summoner's Pact. He's going to use Evolutionary Leap here, of course. Nettle Sentinel's been picked up. He's just on the hunt for a Heritage Druid. Because then he can just chain off and go combo.
Yeah, then he
gain infinite life.
Nuts. One copy of Emrakul in the deck too, so that's his end game in spots like this.
There's Essence Warden. It's a time-shifted Soul Warden.
A lot of time shifting going on in this match.
He's going to sacrifice that. Okay. He does play 4 copies of Essence Warden, so he can certainly let one of those go.
As you mentioned, I think Heritage Druid is the real prize right now. From there, he goes nuts, especially with all the Nettle Sentinels he's picked up over the last couple of turns.
There's an Elvish Mystic.
And he doesn't really need the Essence Warden here because one of two things is happening. Matthew finds a trample effect, and then little bits of life game don't really matter. Or Matthew doesn't find a way to give trample, and then you're just locking him down with Evolutionary Leap and chump blocking.
See what this one is. Hyena Umbra.
No hesitation.
It's just, this is like clockwork for me. Now that one, Vigilance, because of the coronet. Yeah.
Right.
I know we don't cover Modern much, but come on now.
And Green-White Hexproof has fallen off the radar.
Yep.
We saw, I think, none of it in Charlotte.
Oh, yeah, I actually don't think we covered a single match with it.
Either or the Invitational.
Yeah.
I don't think we saw it on either day.
Chris going to sacrifice this Elvish Mystic to Evolutionary Leap. Get an Elvish Visionary. There are ways for him to win the game immediately. And evolves Heritage Druid. VanMeter will untap. It's time to draw. Can he find a Heritage Druid to go absolutely nuts? Essence Ward in the draw. Summoner's Pact will work just fine too if he can find one of those. The question
Even
is,
just lands.
Yeah.
Lands would be good for him too. You know, he's trying to put stuff on the table and activate Evolutionary Leap, and he's just a little jammed up right now.
time to draw a card from the Visionary. Temple Garden. Going to one's not none. That might be okay.
Yeah, I think he's beat by a trample effect regardless.
Yeah, that or Spirit Mantle. Either one of those cards are going to kill him. 2 mana. Looks like maybe just 1 mana. There's Essence Warden. I think he played the Temple Garden tapped. Yep. Any trample effects? Any Spirit Mantles here for Mr. Hatch? Yeah, Keen Sense. It was green. Just not Rancor.
Now Chris is in double chump lot territory.
Yep.
I guess the difference between 3 and 1 is suddenly the Dryad Arbor is now
yeah.
something he has to concern himself with. If he stays at 3, he can ignore it.
Yep. Especially if he just puts an enchantment on that thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. It's funny, Magic can be very complicated sometimes. Sometimes it's a very straightforward game. If you're Matthew, it's very straightforward right now.
Yeah, this is what it is. I mean, I'm going to keep doing this. You're going to keep doing your thing. If I draw a trample effect, great. But my deck does not allow me to do much else other than this. So this is what I'm doing.
It's time to activate the leap. Essence Warden again. Rest go to the bottom.
And Leap puts him on the bottom, too. So Chris is getting a lot of looks.
Yeah.
A lot of looks at Heritage Druid.
Can he find it is the question. Take a draw. Wooded Foothills.
In a way, he almost doesn't want to sack the Wooded Foothills because he's looked at so many cards that are on the bottom. He's loath to shuffle. If he can avoid it, he'll try to avoid it.
There's a Warden. Curio's going to pick up the Visionary. He'll redeploy the Visionary, draw a card. Good sequencing. Also gets to gain a life. I think it was an Arbor Elf. Where are you, Heritage Druid? Wooded Foothills. And we got another little elf here.
And you can see Chris is trying to not use the Nettle Sentinels. With 2 of those plus a Heritage Druid and the Curio in play, the world's his oyster.
Yep.
So he's going to be chump blocking with mana creatures, Essence Wardens, whatever, as much as possible. Try to keep the Nettle Sentinel around. So in the event he finds Heritage Druid, he can go crazy.
The thing is if he finds Heritage Druid, he can make infinite mana.
Yep.
And then, he can pick up and replay stuff and all that stuff with Curio. And then he can just activate Evolutionary Leap enough times to be able to find Emrakul. Then he could, sacrifice Emrakul, shuffle back in, do it again. He fully loops if he finds the Druid. He just needs to find the Druid and dodge a trample spell the entire time or Spirit Mantle, which he has done again. He also gets to gain infinite life, too.
Yeah.
Because Essence Warden is involved. And he will sacrifice the Foothills. So that means he's going to shuffle the cards that were at the bottom of his deck back into his deck. Now, one thing he gets to shuffle back in here is a copy of Summoner's Pact.
Which also plays just fine here.
Yep. And now he'll sacrifice Arbor Elf to Evolutionary Leap. Any Heritage Druids to be had? No, Elvish Mystic. Essence Warden will bite the dust. Hatch will gain no more life because the one that was blocked by Daybreak Coronet was sacrificed. And all I can do is pass the turn back. VanMeter, little draw step. And Essence Warden. That's not it. Chris starting to get a little smile here, trying to hit. That is an Essence Warden. Bring back the Visionary. This is a Visionary. Gain a life from the Essence Warden. Draw a card. I think that was a Heritage Druid.
I think we're going to start making some things happen now.
Showtime, folks. Took you long enough. Hiya! Now, it's a trigger test. 3 green mana. He also gets to gain some life. You also get a Curio trigger, so bring that back. Nettle Sentinel, down to 2 green. Bring this, oh, untap that, because he played a green spell. Trigger Curio, trigger Essence Warden.
And in contrast to the Grand Prix winning deck that had things like Court of Calling and Azuri and was trying to kind of win through combat at the end of the day, Chris's deck is looking to go infinite.
Yes.
And it's happening right now.
Yep.
There's even a weird harvest in his deck to that end.
There's a 3rd Nettle Sentinel in hand, too, so now he gets to just easily go infinite.
Yeah.
Every green spell he plays, he gets to untap Nettle Sentinel and add 3 green mana to his mana pool, so this is super easy.
And you can see Matthew starting to fidget with his lands a little bit. I think he knows he's beat. He may sit around here and just wait to see what the kill is.
You got to get your camera time.
Yeah.
Come on now.
Chris has established the loop.
Yes.
We're not getting out from under this.
No, we're not. This is the infinite life loop. So what Chris can do now is he can play every green spell he plays will untap Nettle Sentinel, Curio trigger. So what he can do is he can just bounce Essence Warden, play Essence Warden, bounce Elvish Mystic or Land of War Elves, and just do that.
Right. All these iterations leave him positive on mana. He can do them as many times as he wants to.
Correct.
He can then draw every creature in his deck. Blah, blah, blah. You know, he does whatever he wants to from here.
So Chris has explained, okay, that's what I'm going to do now. Now I'm going to draw a lot of cards and find a way to kill you. So do you want to see how I'm going to kill you? I'll explain to you that I'm going to get an Emrakul, which I can loop again and again and again. And just like that, all it took was a Heritage Druid.
That was the only piece needed to unlock all of that.
And for that, Chris VanMeter does win game number 1 here over Matthew Hatch. Evolutionary Elves up a game over Green-White Hexproof. Very nice. Hey, it does show the Emrakul.
Had to fade a couple effects there out of Matthew's deck, but once Evolutionary Leap got into play in concert with a sea of chump blockers, without trample, without protection from creatures, Matthew's deck can't really get out from under that. Chris missed for a while there, but you know, he's only going to miss for so long.
Hey, Matthew missed for a while there too.
Yes, it's true.
Matthew does have 4 copies of Rancor, and a copy of Unflinching Courage, and then 3 Spirit Mantles. So he was on 8-outer to get out of that situation.
Yeah.
So he definitely had some outs there, but was unable to find it. We'll take a look at the sideboard, see if he's got anything here to help. He's got 2 Nature Claims, 2 Qasali Pride Mage, 2 Relic of Progenitus, 2 Gaddock Teague, 3 copies of Suppression Field, 3 Leona Sanctity, and then a Torpor Orb.
So not a whole lot going on here. I think the 2 copies of Qasali Pride Mage are reasonable, as you saw Curio and Evolutionary Leap. Torpor Orb, very, very good in this matchup. Shuts down a lot of the comes into play triggers from Elves. Also shuts down Cloudstone Curio. So that's
a big deal.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
I played against an Elf deck sort of similar to Chris's deck, not nearly as powerful. This was a couple of years back. And Torpor Orb basically made my opponent's deck burst into flames. They could not play they could not play against that card. So that's a big one in Matthew's sideboard.
What does CVM have on his side?
2 copies of Ranger of Arrows, 3 Court of Calling, a Reclamation Sage, a Scavenging Ooze, an Eternal Witness, 2 copies of Spell Skite, a Back to Nature, 3 Dismember, 2 copies of Birch and Forge Tender. Going to be sideboarding pretty light here, I would imagine. The copy of Back to Nature and the Reclamation Sage seem pretty easy to bring in. I don't mind the Court of Calling here, as Matthew isn't really going to contest Chris's board. Chris is going to be able to build up, and Court of Calling is very powerful in those games. And the Dismembers, there's not a lot of targetable stuff in the Hexproof deck, but there's enough where maybe he wants it. I doubt it, but it's an option for him.
It's very unlikely. I mean, what he gets to target is Core Spirit Dancer and the Dryad Arbor. Then there are the 8 Hexproof threats.
It's very, very light, but sometimes the Hexproof deck just has to do that sort of thing. They don't have one of the boggles. They have to start enchanting whatever they have. They're probably, and Matthew's going to be very aggressive about doing that in this matchup because Chris doesn't play with a lot of creature removal, so it looks pretty safe. Like I said, I don't expect Dismember to come in, but it's a possibility.
Well, these players will shuffle up for game number 2. Matthew Hatch will be on the play. In the meantime, we talked about how Chris VanMeter got second place at the Season 2 Invitational. Well, first place was Ali Antrazi, and that's why he's got this beautiful Angel token. He's our Season 2 Invitational champion. We'll see him at the Players' Championship, but for now, you can get his Invitational token, and here are a couple ways to do it.
Yeah, you're running out of time, though. You get him if you register for any of our 2-day $20,000 Open Series events. Any of the 5K Premier IQ players, both the ones that we hold here at the Opens and at your local store, and any order from StarCityGames.com, $5 or more. But we have another invitational coming in a week. We're going to have a new champion, a new token. So if you want to get your hands on the Ali Antrazi token, either sign up for one of our large events as soon as possible or place an order from StarCityGames.com today.
And Ali is our current defending Invitational champion, but for how long is the question, because we got our Season 3 Invitational next week. Now, you laugh, because what I'm implying is that he could go back-to-back, but I see Tom Ross here this weekend, and it can happen.
I believe Season 2 and Season 3 of last year.
That is correct. That is correct. Got the job done with Boss Sly and Infect in both of those tournaments.
A lot of iconic wins over those 2 invitationals too.
Yes. 2014 was the year of Tom Ross. Mm-hmm. We'll see who 2015 is the year for. Some players have a really good year so far this year in the Open Series, though.
Tom in the house.
Oh yeah,
infecting.
I hope so. I haven't got the opportunity to talk to the boss this weekend, but I have to imagine it.
I went up to him. I asked, "What are you playing this weekend?" And he just goes, "Main deck Piracy Charm." Like the fact that it's infect is already that's not even worth discussing. Just main deck Piracy Charm.
Now it's about the intricacies of the list.
Right.
I hope I get to see some Piracy Charm blowouts now.
For sure.
Discarding your draw step. Mm-hmm. Got him.
Island Walk.
See, the easy mode's +2/-1.
Yep.
That kills Dark
It's
Confidant.
Funeral Charm, except it's Island Walk instead of Swamp Walk.
Yeah.
My first Pro Tour, I played with Funeral Charm. Used all the modes.
Nice.
Did not win a lot of matches.
But that doesn't matter. You used all the modes, like a bingo card.
Had 2 of them. Used one to give 100 Wumpus +2/-1. Used the other to give it Swamp Walk. And that's lethal. So I'm familiar with Piracy Charm. It was actually a significant card because it was a way for blue decks to kill Dark Confidant.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So definitely, it's definitely had its time in Standard in some other formats.
I generally enjoyed that the 100 Wumpus need a little help across the finish line.
Yeah.
So +2/-1 and then walk on those swamps.
All right, well, it was against Reanimator, so the ground was pretty well locked up.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Bring that card back.
What?
The Wumpus.
100 Wumpus was bad even when people didn't play with creatures.
Yeah.
Now, I think it would be pretty rough.
That would be horrible, but it's charming.
It is charming. I mean, 4-mana 6/6 blank probably does not show up in Standard decks.
That thing's got trample, right?
No.
No. Okay. Maybe a little worse than I remember. Matt's going to take a mulligan here. Something that the Green-White Hexproof does a fairly decent amount.
It's just hilarious that it ever showed up in decks to begin with.
Different time.
Yeah.
Different time.
Because it wasn't even good back then. Because even though people didn't play with, they didn't play with creatures necessarily, they certainly were playing with like Capsize and Counterspell and, Submerge is pretty good against it.
Yep. Oh, the Wumpus.
Waterfront Bouncer, pretty potent against it.
I had a real love for the 4-mana big green creatures that had, bad text or whatever.
Jade Leech.
Yeah, Jade Leech, Emperor Crocodile.
Mm-hmm.
Urnham Djinn was a little before me. I'm more of the Open Fist.
Oh, yeah.
I loved all of those things. Argothian Worm.
Great. That is an all-time horrible Magic design.
That was the first rare that I bought 4 copies of, was the Worm. Because back when I was young, I was like, how do you stop this thing?
There's very few cards in Magic that make it guaranteed that both players have less fun. Argothian Worm is definitely one of them.
I wanted that card real bad.
You can Stone Rain yourself to repel it,
Yeah.
So that's just every turn is someone getting repelled and the other person getting stone rained.
Yeah. Not great. Not great gameplay.
Not great gameplay.
There's a
I
Ladder
also
World.
bought a bunch of Argothian ones. That's right when I got back into Magic, and I was just like, this thing's insane.
That was my first 4 of rare when I was young. I was just mowing lawns for that bad boy.
And then, I got behind on the board once and realized that, it comes with some problems.
Well, like with most Magic cards, you have to play with them to know.
Yeah.
Matthew with the Temple Garden now.
Blastoderm, another one.
That was a really good one. Does he have the Spirit Dancer? Oh, we're going.
Ooh, this is a tough way to make hay.
We're going to the Arbor. It's got ethereal armor.
This is a tough way to do
Hey,
it.
whatever it takes. Whatever it takes.
This is the type of opening that Chris is going to be pretty solid against.
You think he'll be okay with this?
I mean, Matthew can put in a lot of pressure next turn, but the problem is that this is also tying up Matthew's mana.
Yeah.
He's down to a land, so it's hard for his draw to follow up with that much explosiveness. This would also be a really good spot for Dismember.
Yeah.
Again, Chris didn't bring him in, but this kind of draw does happen sometimes for hexproof decks.
Couple Metal Sentinels. Oh, get in there, Land of Werewolves.
No points left behind.
No. Hatch will untap and take a draw. Remember, he's on 6 cards. What's the big follow-up? Rancor. Would have been a game-winning card last game. Now he's going to maybe sacrifice that Windswept Heath. Dryad Arbor just getting bigger and bigger as it comes in the red zone. It's got first strike, too, because of the ethereal armor. Hatch will sacrifice his Windswept Heath. And perhaps he has a creature after combat.
I believe Chris has brought in the Court of Callings,
Okay.
which, again, I liked while we were sideboarding, in part because Matthew doesn't really kill stuff. Love the one weird harvest in this deck.
It's a nice little brew card.
Yeah.
There's a Slippery Boggle. Now we're heading back VanMeter's way. Looks like Evolutionary Leap was the draw. Is that a Nykthos in hand? Okay.
Yeah, you got one in there.
Sure. That's a little fun of. Guess the mana requirements aren't too strict on this deck.
I mean, it's the only land that doesn't generate green mana.
Yeah. He's not plus mana on it yet, but you have to imagine he will be.
Well, Evolutionary Leap gets him to be plus mana.
Yeah. VanMeter's sizing him up.
Well, from Chris's side of the table, you got to figure, I probably got one more turn, but not 2. So he can spend this turn setting up shop and then try to go off next turn. Also, with Court of Calling, assuming that he's brought in the Reclamation Sage, depending on what Matthew does, Chris could make combat really nasty for Matthew next turn. You take away his whatever's giving first strike. Now you block and trade, and Matthew's really far behind.
Yeah.
And Cloudsound Curio, on top of Reclamation Sage, that's a combo.
Well, here's a chord for 1. That's going to untap Nettle Sentinels. Maybe it's time to go get the Heritage Druid. Go have some real fun. Yep, all right. 4 green mana symbols out there now.
And if he's doing this in lieu of the Reclamation Sage, he's saying, I can get this done either this turn or next turn.
Pretty loud statement.
Yeah.
Here's 3 green.
Ooh, now he's got mana floating, and the Nykthos is still available.
Yeah, dude.
Oh,
We're doing it.
we are cooking.
Evolutionary Leap. Down to 1 green. Untap those. Up to 4. Matthew might just be dead.
Yeah, I mean, this is such a low base to go off from. And I think Chris has just got it.
7 green. It's going to use one. Yep, sacrifice this to leap. Heritage Druid. It's going to add it to the hand. That's a green spell to play to untap. Oh, here's Curio. Uh-oh. Yep, so now he's down to 3 green. Play this. Down to 2. Untap these. Return that one. Up to 5, down to 4. Okay, inf.
Yep.
That was easy. Jeez. Yep, down to 4. Return the other Heritage Druid. Up to 7, down to 6, up to 9. Yep, okay. So that's infinite green mana. That part's over. That was really hard to accomplish.
And now evolutionary leap cycles. Every creature's got infinite mana.
Yep.
He finds his Emrakul or whatever.
Yeah. So now he's just going to leap a bunch. Sacrifice this to leap, yeah. So now he can just get Warden. Warden would allow him to have infinite life if he wanted to, even though he sacrificed away both Heritage Druids. But he does have a Druid in his hand. So.
He's even got Back to Nature in case things got hairy in this game.
A Spellskite, that's fun. That's neat.
Yep.
Yeah, so Chris has infinite green mana, and now he's working his way through his deck with Evolutionary Leap. So every creature that he finds, he's just going to sacrifice. He's going to leave these 2 Nettle Sentinels on the battlefield. I think it's just a search for Emrakul here.
Right, this is just a cycle.
He'll get to draw a card with Elvish Visionary when he casts it, so if he does cast it. Yeah, he's going to start with Heritage Druid instead. And now Visionary. Oh, well,
now
he draws
his whole deck.
Yeah. Now, he's got to be careful with how he announces it, obviously, but 1 by 1 I go. So I'm going to do this a bunch. I'm going to find my Emrakul, and Matthew's reaching for the Temple Gardens now.
Yeah.
Will you show me your Emrakul? Oh, that's convenient. Matthew has 6 permanents on the battlefield.
Perfect. That's how you draw it up.
Flawless. Chris VanMeter going to win this match over Matthew Hatch 2-0. Evolutionary Elves will take care of Green-White Hexproof. I think it's a bad matchup for Hexproof.
It feels that way. I mean, again, the Hexproof strategy, it's one of the few creature decks you can play in Modern that's powerful against both blockers and removal spells. You're able to beat both of those things. But someone who's just accelerating into something unfair, you don't play to the board and you don't interact with your opponent's